This week on ICN, the stories you should have heard, but didn't. National media blackout on violent immigration protests. Armed robbers picked the wrong place at the wrong time. Just wait until you hear Bill Clinton's solution to our national debt. Want to get rich? Just work for the feds. Those stories and more next on Informed Citizen News. Hello and welcome to ICN, Informed Citizen News, May 2nd, 2010. The national media was waiting to pounce on anything that could be used to marginalize the recent Tea Party and national health care protests. If the Tea Party protesters started a riot, intimidated people, or vandalized local shops, then the national press would have had a field day. The protests against the bailouts, health care, and taxes witnessed hundreds of thousands of people marching in the streets across the country. With the exception of a few arrests or questionable protest signs, the national media had been quite disappointed at the civility displayed by Americans voicing criticism of the government. The recent immigration protests this past week were quite a different story. The national media had a virtual blackout on unruly behavior displayed by protesters. The protesters were out demonstrating against the recent passage of an Arizona bill that calls for police to be more active in the enforcement of immigration laws. Take a look at some of the action from a protest in Phoenix, Arizona last week. This mob clearly endangered bystanders, police, and counter-protesters. With very little coverage by the national media, it clearly shows that these scenes of out-of-control protesters did not fit the mainstream media agenda. This was not isolated to Phoenix. In Chicago, police clashed with immigration demonstrators and protesters blocked vehicles. 24 arrests were made. In a march in Santa Cruz, California, protesters damaged 18 businesses with repair costs reached an estimated $100,000. In San Francisco, 3 people were beaten with 2 arrests. During a pro-illegal immigration protest outside the White House on Saturday, 35 were arrested. With virtually no coverage from the national media, this just reinforces that the typical news channel is more about protecting Washington and selling products than they are about informing Americans. Over the last few years, Omaha, Nebraska has seen a killing spree at a mall, along with increased crime and gang activity. An attempted robbery took place in Omaha this week. 2 men stormed a Walgreens wearing hooded sweatshirts, baggy clothes, and ski masks. 1 man wielded a sawed-off shotgun. Within seconds, this armed robbery was stopped by a private citizen carrying a firearm that he had been trained to use. Listen to how he describes the events as they unfolded.
2 men walked in. They stated nobody move. Saw a gentleman with a short-barreled shotgun waving it around to everybody. His attention started to go to a lady at an ATM that's right next to the door. At that time, I had a wallet in my hand, and at that time I pulled out my .40 caliber and fired at the gentleman with the sawed-off shotgun and hitting him. He exited Walgreens. The other gentleman ran past me down the aisle of the aisles. I chased after him, apprehended him, stated the employees to call the police, physically drug him to the front of the store to where I could keep an eye on the door in case somebody came back in to try to get this gentleman free. At that time, the manager ran by me for the front door. I instructed her to lock the doors, close them. I don't want anybody leaving, nobody coming back in. She said that she could close one but not the other. There was blood and a gun at the front, and at that time I assessed the situation that I had another firearm that was not controlled or out of my control. I drugged the subject to the front doors and sat on top of him and looking directly at the shotgun until police arrived.
Was your intent to kill this man?
Just to defend. That was it. There was no other way out of that situation. I mean, it was either control it or be a victim.
Harry James McCullough hit the man carrying the shotgun 4 times, who then staggered outside the store before he died. He restrained the other robber until police arrived. A getaway driver was arrested 2 days later. The armed citizen, clearly a calm, disciplined man, took immediate action to prevent a criminal predator from harming innocent bystanders in the store. Mr. McCullough does not consider himself a hero and calls the event tragic. He has not slept or ate much since the shooting on April 26th. Because of the choice made by those men to rob, one is dead and 2 others are on their way to prison. McCullough will have to live with the fact that he had to kill another human being in order to defend himself and those around him. This event was the Second Amendment in practice. A private citizen, trained and disciplined to react properly and legally in a life-threatening situation. Not only does Mr. McCullough have to carry this burden the rest of his life, but as these robbers were affiliated with a gang, there is the concern for retribution. The mother of the armed robber who died has stated that she holds no animosity toward Mr. McCullough, and she pleaded against any attempt at retaliation by gang members. The idea that there is a conspiracy among the rich and powerful to create a world government with a single global currency is often mocked and ridiculed, or reacted to with a rolling of the eyes. Just the idea of conspirators planning the destruction of U.S. sovereignty so that a new world order can take over sounds crazy, right? The conspiracy would sound crazy if we didn't actually have global leaders meeting with the elite of society to discuss how to install a global government. This past week, the head of the European Central Bank spoke in front of the Council on Foreign Relations about how the world needs global governance. The Bank for International Settlements, accountable to no one, was at the top of the list to run the global financial system. The topic of globalizing government is being discussed more and more in the open by those with influence.
So is this some sort of a new world order?
President Obama and British Prime Minister Gordon today calling for a new world order to tackle our global economic crisis.
I think a new world order is emerging.
This time, a new world order with business at the helm of trade and economic policy.
In this period, when really a new world order can be created.
It's about the future of Europe and a new world order.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
We needed a new world order.
In this new world, such dangerous currents have swept along faster than our efforts to contain them. And that is why we cannot afford to be divided.
If your point is that perhaps Barack Obama is in for a new world order, I think you are correct.
The march to world government is not a conspiracy theory anymore. It's an agenda that is openly discussed. And you get to decide which side you're on. For those of you who take voting seriously, we recommend the website votetrackers.com. The website provides easy access to research congressional voting records on important recent bills. On this site, you can view how your elected representatives voted on such bills as health care, cap and trade, cash for clunkers, banking bailouts, and the stimulus. Votetrackers.com. It's worth checking out. The Army Times reported this week that troubling new data shows an average of 18 military veterans committing suicide every day. Of active duty personnel, there is 1 suicide per day. In 2009, there were more active duty suicides than combat-related deaths in either Iraq or Afghanistan. Total combat deaths since 2001 in Afghanistan and since 2003 in Iraq total 5,406 as of March 21st of this year. The Veterans Administration estimates that over that same period, 51,000 veterans have taken their own lives. And many people believe that this estimate is low due to a lack of reporting. This week, former President Bill Clinton suggested that there is a simple way to solve the problem of the national budget deficit and ballooning debt. He said, "I don't think there's any alternative for us but increasing immigration." You heard it right. More immigrants means financial security for the United States. Clinton also said that one key to avoiding massive debt is to maintain a good ratio between people paying into the system and those receiving payouts such as Social Security. Apparently, our former president has a clear understanding of how Ponzi schemes work. Thanks for joining us. From all of us at Informed Citizen News, have a great week.